Hi Group Auditeers, this is Cami Peterson giving you feedback on your project interval 3. What I'll be taking a look at is the completion of your functional requirements as well as the second part of your audit requirements for this. I also did take a look at any feedback that I had given to see if any revisions were made for project interval 1 and project interval 2. I did take a look at the goals and objectives and didn't see any updates made based on the feedback that I've given, so I'm not going to regrade that section. Just please keep in mind that any feedback that I've given up to this point you should be taking into consideration and making changes to your project, so when you submit the final one that I can go through and fully grade this when you get full points for it. So taking a look at your functional requirements, you have a really great start to this. However, the way I look at this was, again, not being really clear with what you're implementing in phase 1, which is what we are focusing on for this particular class, even though we had you build out phase 2 and phase 3, is all of the functional requirements that need to be done for phase 1. So when I look at this, I see that you are building out your entire customer service, that you're focusing on your customer service piece. Marketing is phase 2 and sales is phase 3. So when I take a look at your customer service piece, I'm looking at this from a lens now of a developer. Do I have enough information and requirements in here that I could take these without having to make any assumptions or have to go back to you to ask you more questions about what to build? So what I've done is actually taken this and put it into a Word document to kind of help you see what more could be built out here. If I look at what you had provided me, it's very vague, still a lot of questions open to interpretation. So I actually took your customer service item and just created a very basic process flow. I don't know if this is what your process flow should look like or not, or what the workflow would look like, but I just took a stab at it. So I wanted to at least show you this example, because when you're writing these business cases, this is essentially where you're going to start. You're going to start at the high level. So you're receiving an inquiry or a question or an issue from a customer, and it's going to create a case. It looks like you want auto routing, so it's going to auto route based on some requirements and transfer that case to the appropriate agent to handle it. That agent's then going to handle and update the case, maybe have some back and forth with the customer, whether it's email, phone call, chat. They're going to add notes to it, they're going to do status updates, they're going to update information on the case, potentially pull in some knowledge management articles. Again, we're going to have audit tracking. And then hopefully you're going to close the case by doing the status update where it's going to send out a survey. You're going to want to track the surveys that are sent out, and again, the auditing record. By starting at this highest level, I can break down into what exactly is happening in each one of these processes and what needs to be built then in the CRM to handle this process. So if I actually just copied and pasted all of your items in here, and all of the items here that are shown in yellow are my questions. So if we're truly looking at customer service support and the case management perspective, so you receive, create customer services cases from email, chat, or portal. Okay, so as a developer, I have questions about that. So what's the email address that you want the customers to use in order to send an email in a case get created? I'm going to need that email address to be able to automate this process, because you're going to have to create and configure a business rule for this. Are you building the chat and portal as well, or are you using the Salesforce functionality for this? If you're using Salesforce functionality to build out the portal and chat, there should be a whole nother section for chat requirements and portal requirements. So that's why I say, like for phase 1, it might be beneficial to break this down into a manageable section. Maybe you're just getting the case management section up where the customer can either email in to create a case or they're creating a phone, and maybe your chat and portal are phase 2. I'll leave that up to you. Otherwise, do they already have a chat and portal software or something that they're already using that they can integrate with the CRM system? If they're going to integrate with the CRM system, then we'll need requirements on how they should be integrating and what values or information is going to be passed from each of the chat and portal into the case itself. And then just a question, do they accept phone calls? Maybe they don't, just thought I'd ask, because that was another channel that I typically see when I see the email, chat, or portal. I usually see phone. In some companies are completely moving away from phone. The transferring the case to an appropriate agent based on skill and category. Now I saw below that you wanted this automated. So if this is automated, so I just want a clarification. Is this automated, or is there any manual human intervention to route these cases to the appropriate people. And I'll get to this a little bit further down. Automating the processes for resolving issues. What does this workflow or process look like? I don't know what you're talking about here when you say automate the processes. Are there things that should be automatically routing or closing, or what are the processes? I don't know what they are to even build this. So you'd have to define what processes you want automated and list those out so that me as a developer, which is actually going to be you because you're developing this, would have all of the information they needed to then go into the CRM and start building this. Detailed tracking of updates, that would be your audit log. So you'll want to define what are the things that you actually want to audit on. Full case history. And then we get into like the contact records, so the records themselves. So contact record, you had contact record listed above, but detailed functional requirements actually list out what is the contact record. What is it that you're going to store on a contact record? Is it required? Is it optional? What is it that goes on here? So I had first name, last name, email address, all is required, but then are there other fields that you will need? Phone number, other things to help, track your customers' addresses, those types of things. What are the things that you need the developer to create? So essentially you're going to create a form for your contact record, and whether it's coming in via email, whether it's coming in via the portal or chat, or if it's being manually created, what are the things that need to be filled out to create this contact record to be able to support this client? Ticket management. So I put a lot of information in here just for it's more food for thought. So you have fast creation of tickets. Well, as a developer, I don't know what that means. I could interpret that as, the case opens up within 12 seconds, or an email to case is created automatically. Those are the types of things that you need to define. What does fast creation of tickets mean? The user fields for a description of the problem, the priority, and contact information. So this essentially is going to be your case record. So again, we're going to be creating a form for your case record. So what is it on the case that you want to track and create? So I put some things in here, just again, food for thought. So case number, that should be auto-assigned by the system. Case create date, auto-set that based on the date that the case was created. The channel, maybe you want to track the channel. Is it coming in via chat, via the portal, via manual entry? So this might be auto-set, but it might be a drop-down pick list that you choose to create. The case type. So this is really important when you get into the routing aspect of things. If you want to auto-route cases, you're going to need to define the case types that you want and who they're going to route to, or what profiles they're going to route to. So you're actually going to need to define the profiles and users as well as which case types they can handle in order to build these rules out and hand them off to the developer to actually create this queuing, this auto queuing for you. Maybe you want to capture the description and subject. So maybe the subject is like an email subject and the description is more like the full body of an email, but it would be a description of the case. Priority, you had that listed out. This would be a pick list item. Again, is this a required field? Status, again, a required field, pick list field. I added in the ones that you had here. I also put in here that new is going to be the default. So when the case is created, it's going to default to new. So making sure that you define all of those items out for that pick list field. Close date of the case. So this is auto set to the date the case was changed to the closed status, and then closed by whom? Auto set based on who updated the status of the case to closed. And then what else? What else do you want to track on this case? What else do you want to be able to do on this case? So as you can see, I'm starting to kind of give you some more things to think about, because as a developer, so whoever's developing your CRM, maybe you guys are doing it as a group, you will be able to use these functional requirements and go right into your CRM and say, okay, I'm going to create a case record. And this is what the form is going to look like. I need these fields, I need to develop these fields, I need to create these pick list fields, etc. So there's other things in here too that I didn't go into as much detail, but one of the other things here is your queue management priorities. So I talked a little bit about that already, but what are the business rules to route the cases? So again, you're going to need to have like some type of table or something that defines the profiles and then the case types that they can handle, so that can be then developed to be able to auto route any cases that come in with this case type will go into a queue that for these 2 out of the 9 profiles or something like that. So you're going to need to build and put that in your functional requirements. So again, when you hand this off to their developer, they're going to know exactly what they need to build. Automatically creating a new reference number, ID, sending confirmation email to requester when a request is received. So for that email, what are the requirements for the email? What email address will it be sent from? You can define the from emails within Salesforce. What does the template of the email look like? Because that developer is going to have to create that template. Maybe it's just a basic template with a subject that says case number, and then you insert the case number, has been created, and then the body gives, dear first name, last name, a case has been opened for your inquiry, and then you give them a link to the customer portal to be able to see the case. It's those types of details that you're going to need to develop and define in these functional requirements. And they are, yes, I realize these are very detailed, but that's what functional requirements are. They're a point and a stopping point for the business to say exactly what they're looking for so that they can hand those off to the developer, and the developer can go off and create all of these things. Now, yes, there might be back and forth questions that have to be asked, but essentially the functional requirements are the thing that you hand off to your developer. They go off and develop to get the system ready for you. In this case, you're the developer. Again, knowledge base. So what knowledge content are you including? Is it by case type? And then once you identify kind of the table of the knowledge information that you're going to update, you as a business are going to have to put the tags on them so that when you hand that over to your developer, they know exactly what knowledge they need to import and which tags they need to put on those. So when they do, when the users do the key searches, they're able to see that. And then for contacts and accounts, I wasn't exactly sure here what an account is versus a contact in this situation. If you do need to have accounts, you're going to need to define a account record similar to what you did for the case record or for the contact record. And are the contacts in any way, shape, or form linked to the account record? So some food for thought there. And then what you have listed out here, agents must have access to contacts and accounts. You may actually have a profile settings table. So you would list out all of the profiles that you have set up in the system, and then like maybe the functions, and should they have access to them or shouldn't they have access to them? And if they have access to them, what do they have access to do? Do they have access to read? Do they have access to write, meaning they can update it, they can create it? Do they have access to delete? Those are all settings within Salesforce that will need to be defined for each of the profiles that you're setting up in order to, again, to pass this off to your developer. And then we already talked about the chat function for this. Again, if you're using the Salesforce chat function, you're going to need to define those requirements. And then for the satisfaction survey, so automate the process for sending a survey out after a case is closed. But what is that process? Is it sent for every case that's closed? Is it only certain case types? Do you send them only one time in a 30-day period to a client so the client isn't getting a survey from you every single time? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. What does the survey look like? So you'll need to provide requirements for all of those. So when you hear me talk about the scope for phase one, this is a huge scope to take on for phase one. It can be done. It's usually a longer project, but maybe for this particular project, you need to go back and look at your objectives that you want to accomplish in phase one, phase two, and phase three. Maybe your chat and your customer portal, and maybe even your surveys are part of phase two, and you're really focusing on just getting the workflow set up for the case to be created with a contact record and an account record, and maybe you're doing the automated queue routing, or maybe you're not doing the automated queue routing. Maybe that's another thing that you can add to phase two. But again, just some food for thought for you to think about when you're going through your functional requirements. And then when I take a look at your audit requirements, I think my biggest question here is on the control. So similar to what you have up here on some of your control items, it's the CRM that's going to prevent the cross-domain access. When I look at these things, it says no changes will be made without an accepted proposal. Well, what is the control for that? Who's the one that makes sure that there's a proposal to make sure that this policy and process is being followed? Is it a stakeholder group? Is it the CEO? Is it, the second VP of customer service? Same thing for changing status tracking report and training. This training will be mandatory and supervisors will analyze the results. What supervisors? And how often are these supervisors analyzing this? It's really tightening up those controls so you have very clear direction on what control is in place and how it needs to be followed through your policy and process. But who's going to make sure that that happens? But that's my feedback group. Very nice start to project interval 3. If you have any questions on any of the comments that I've provided, please let me know. I am available to Skype with your team as well, so please reach out if you need that. Otherwise, that's my feedback. You do get full points for this time around, but I will be looking for updates to this section when I get to the final project.